Something my grandma told me that has always stuck with me. My grandma is white. She grew up on a plantation. She would be nearing 100 years old today, but she passed away sadly. I miss her so much. But she would always tell me these stories, things that I felt like being a biracial person shouldn't really know about. You know, like there's certain things that I think races kind of keep to themselves, and I was able to hear these things. She told me that when she was a young girl, she remembers a very wealthy man coming to their plantation and telling them that they were worried that there weren't enough white babies being born, blonde hair, blue-eyed white babies. Like they wanted pure white babies. He told them that he would check in periodically, and the family, after 5 years, to have the most blonde hair, blue-eyed white babies would win prize money. There were about 12 babies born. So many babies were born. So they didn't actually win the prize money though. The prize money went to another family. I always wondered who that person was and what the outcome was. Like how many.
They were called the Better Baby Contests or the Fitter Family Contest, where they looked at your entire family to see if you were good stock. And these contests directly inspired Yazidism in Germany. Let's get started and learn something new. Let's take it on back to the early 1900s. Before these contests started happening in the 1920s, there was an issue happening in the United States. Approximately 100 infants of every 1,000 live births died before their first birthday. Created a social awareness of child health, making sure they had better access to doctors, making sure they had better hygiene, making sure they had proper nutrition, which inspired a conference that was hosted by President Theodore Roosevelt. Then in 1912, a children's bureau that addressed all of these needs. But that's when eugenists got involved and it got a little crazy. That's the early 1900s. Eugenicists, you already know, they wanted the strongest, healthiest, whitest, blue-eyedest people to be reproducing, and of course the feeble-minded and the other less viable people should not be having children. And this concept wasn't crazy back then. Nobody had a problem with it. Even President Roosevelt wrote a letter to Charles Davenport, the director of the Eugenics Record Office, and he said that our society permits unlimited breeding from the worst stock. I knew that these contests would be super popular. They're super popular to this day. Baby contests, family contests. So they just knew that this would work because they could put it under the guise of they're just trying to better the babies, make sure the babies are healthy, make sure they don't pass away under the age of 1 year old, make sure that they have their nutrition, their hygiene, access to doctors. But we're also going to sprinkle just a little bit of eugenics in there. As images of healthy babies popped up in newspapers around the country because of these contests, they realized you can popularize eugenics and ideas about inheritance by building on this model. And of course, these eugenicists had extensive research projects. So this data that they were getting from these contests from hundreds of families, a eugenicist's dream, okay? Now, while seemingly benign, contests like these reinforce the notion of white Americans having the most desirable characteristics, white and preferably with blue eyes, and implicitly discourage the inclusion of people who fell outside that range. By setting scorecards and standards, the contest organizers put forth a hierarchy of humans. Can't fit everything in this video, so I'm going to put a link in the comments for a PBS documentary that talks about this. It's about 30 minutes long. Please watch it. I promise you'll learn something new. Now, judging these babies morphed into a eugenically driven judgment of the families, and that's when Fitter Families came along. And public acceptance of these concepts would also pave the way for national level changes. The Immigration Act of 1924 that restricted the number of foreigners who could enter the United States. They said America must remain American. And then in 1927, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the principle of sterilization of certain defective persons by the state. Sums up everything perfectly. This system of beliefs reached full flower in the camps of Yazidi, Germany, and seeing its earlier stages in the wholesome setting of Midwestern state fairs with folding chairs under the shade trees and the science fair quality of the displays is creepy in a way that few things are. I hope you learned something new and watch that documentary.